Everybody, welcome to the fourth episode of State of Scrims. This is a weird week in the world of esports. We have FlyQuest 6-0 at the top of the standings, and Dignitas, according to the LCS, is somehow 0-4 despite having played 6 games. The LEC is crazy. Vitality manages yet again to completely fail everyone's expectations and did not win their series. This week we have Garen in the LEC. We have Moose Hater absolutely stomping. LCS Challenger League, I think it's called now. LCK is a disaster. Live Sandbox is somehow beating D+, Hanwha Life Esports, and KT Rolster. And LPL is fantastic. We have You Should Know Me absolutely shitting on everyone as EDG's top lane. And somehow, the Mason Jars has been transformed into Blake for this week. So welcome Blake to the show. And we will be talking a lot of draft, as that is what Blake is known for in our server. So how have you been?
I'm known for good drafts only. Everybody knows me. I'm the draft genius. Although I do get to replace Mason, which honestly, which one of us is more boosted? I play Gangplank, he plays Udyr. Like, I don't know. Which one of us is boosted more by our champion?
That is a good question. I think he plays a lot of different champions, and sometimes you just get carried by Enchantress tops being OP because Riot simply won't nerf them. Did you actually catch the LS interview thing? Because I did not
I
get to
watched
watch
some
that.
of it. I watched some of it. I was in a class during it. A lot of it's just like stuff that I already knew and like stuff that LS has already talked about a lot. So it wasn't really worth sitting through like debating like 30 minutes or so.
Fair,
But
fair,
I
fair.
have not gotten past that so far. So we'll see if it develops into something new. Quick mention also LEC. I've been watching like every LEC game. I was so hyped going into the LEC season because every team was just super duper competitive. Like even the most like bum awful team, like it still had like some like crazy players on them.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's been really
I
interesting to see
forget
how
who
they turn
got
out.
last, but I know Fnatic actually looked pretty good and somehow ended up in ninth. So
I think it's XL.
that
I
sounds
think it's
right.
XL.
Yeah, I think there's one Korean team, I forget which one, but apparently their coach was it was CV Maxis who's coaching, I forget which team, but apparently they just went out and said, yeah, we're just treating the entire spring split like scrims, so
Really?
who
That's
knows?
hype.
Yeah, and I mean, the standings for us have gone pretty interestingly as well. I believe we have a three-way tie, and it could be a five-way tie if we had played our game. Could also have not been a five-way tie, but I think it has definitely been interesting. A good season so far. I feel like all of our teams are pretty competitive. Let me see if I managed to not screw up Chrome. I actually totally did.
I was eating my heart out yesterday. I am from Pennsylvania, so I'm not happy. I'm
Yeah,
not happy at all.
me as well. So I definitely feel your pain there. Um, well,
Here,
I'm
I'll
gonna
plug
try
in
and
my laptop.
frame this a
Maybe
little bit.
halfway through we switch to the camera.
Could be hype. Could be hype. Okay, I
Yeah.
do actually have the first draft pulled up here, and it's kind of following the trend of what's been happening in scrims for the first couple weeks. We do have a Caitlyn first pick. So
Yeah.
what's your take there?
Hold on. Okay, I can't even find my laptop charger.
Yeah.
So Caitlyn is probably probably one of, if not the best AD carries in the game right now, and is an ungodly safe blind pick. You can go even with like Ezreal, and that's about it. Like that
Yeah.
character wins every lane, has fantastic combos, both with like enchanters, setup champions, and then obviously the classic pick of like the Lux and the Morgana. Um, so I think that's really, really, really good. Obviously, and then if they want to like try to take away like when you look at like the Lucian Nami, never pick Lucian Nami by the way, that shit's so ass.
Oh, what the hell? Oh, I didn't pause it. My bad. My bad.
Oh,
I'm really
oh, was it
intelligent.
just going off? Oh no.
Yeah.
Um, like if you were to take like Nami B1 because we're like, oh, I want to play Lucian Nami, and then enemy steals Lucian, which is probably good for you. You should do that. Just like pick Nami and then
Yeah.
like have the enemy steal the Lucian. But
Yeah, I
I
think that
digress.
Nami is definitely a lot better to have with other champions than the Lucian would be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if you go like Zeri, they can obviously steal the Lulu and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Caitlyn does not have that issue. There are so many champions that you can just pair with. That disgusting monster that that it doesn't even matter if you B1 it because you're not going to lose out any combos. Like sometimes when you're B1ing 80 carries or supports, you lose out on like certain parts of a combo.
Yeah.
Not with Caitlyn.
Yeah, I think that's a really good
Then
point. I actually did skip over bans. I think a lot of these are just target bans here. I
yeah,
believe. I think the roster here is wrong for Andromeda. I think they were playing with Adam, which is why Twitch was banned because he played a AP support both games last week, or not both games, but he played it twice. And then Cam's Echo got banned away, and the Mordekaiser was banned away from Alana, trying to force her off a top lane. Then for the other team, the two 80 carries that were banned away from Hongbaba were Jinx and Ashe, which I do want to talk about, but the Silas ban for Cyrus is pretty easy. It's also a really good flex into the jungle for Anne. I don't think we've actually seen a Silas jungle yet during the team format. But Sarvis has performed really well on the Silas, so worth shouting that out. And then, do you think Jinx and Ashe are the best bans for Hong here? Or do you think that Andromeda
so
could have gone for something else?
I know Teddy has really, 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 really been enjoying Xayah as of lately, and I think that obviously leaving Caitlyn open A is stupid,
Okay,
but I
so
also think Xayah's
Caitlyn is one of them.
I also think Xayah is a really, really strong character. And if you're Andromeda, and Andromeda's just running permanently dive comps because people keep leaving Hecarim open, and if Hecarim's banned, then Cam's picking Echo or another dive champion. So they've just been running permanently like just dive comps. So I think as Andromeda, you need to recognize that and be like, okay, we need to axe this Xayah, or else they're gonna completely ruin our entire strategy.
That's a really good point. I think Teddy has, when he's been talking to me, just said that Zai is a solo queue champ for him. So I don't know if we necessarily see that. And I also think that Teddy did not end up playing AD carry in this game. I believe he was the Amumu support.
Support, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think Jinx just like while it's a really good champion for Hong, I think you're able to play around it correct like pretty easily. Just because I think she does the same thing that Zeri does, but kind of worse. Especially with someone as mechanically skilled as he is, you can kind of just play it better. I do think
Yeah.
Ashe is actually a good ban because I don't know if they were anticipating the Hong support flex here, but it does hit him in both roles, which I think was a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, I think that's good. Ash is obviously a very strong pick.
Yeah.
Teddy can play it both as like the traditional AD carry and as that poke variant. I know you've been seeing in the LCK. I don't know how much you've been watching, but
Not as
I
much as I wanted to.
I can't remember who it was. You can hear the car outside my window. Sorry.
I can't
One of
actually. You're
the
good.
80s, I don't remember who, played just purely poke Ash. I think multiple 80s did it in the LCK.
Mhm.
But just purely poke Ash with a Ravenous first item into an Imperial on the 80 carry.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that a lot in LCS as well. Personally, I think it's really cringe. I think it's good. I just don't enjoy watching it.
Yeah,
But that said, we did pick Seraphine and Ash like 8 times last season, so
that did happen. Yeah.
maybe I'm not
I
allowed to
think
complain.
I think Caitlyn blind here is okay because obviously
Yeah,
Caitlyn
for
has
sure.
decent self peel with her traps. Again, going back to like how we know Andromeda is going to go ahead and go for these dive comps. I think the Caitlyn's good because obviously self peel with E, self peel with traps, and all that. I think that's about it. One more thing before we move into anything else.
Yeah,
Taking a look at the bans, I would like to hover in on the Spectre side. Uh, wait, yeah, Spectre
yeah.
side. Sorry, I was reading which team Alana's on. We see Mordekaiser and Alawi banned.
I think we can gloss over the second round of bans for now because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
know
we
you
see
have thoughts on
Mordekaiser banned.
Mordekaiser.
We see Mordekaiser banned. So we know it's Cam with a flex in the top. I know they have a lot of flexes on their team with Stanley Zach, both playing like mid AD.
Yeah,
Cam playing like mid top.
yeah. And then Adam plays
Um,
top support as well, which is tough.
Yep, and then Alana can also. Does Alana play jungle? No,
I
she plays support and
think
top, right?
so. I think she can play any role except ADC, if I'm
Right. Yeah.
correct.
And with all those flex picks, you have infinite possibilities to counter the champion that has infinite counters. So
True.
why in the world, when you have Cam who plays GP, fucking Adam who just plays tanks that just always like go even with the Mordekaiser, why are you banning it? It's worthless. You second round pick. Are you first round pick the Caitlyn? What is Moore doing to Caitlyn? Walk at her. What does Caitlyn do back? kite him and kill him. I don't get it. Character is not good. Stop picking it. Stop banning it. If they pick it, they're griefing. They want you to win if they're picking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, I
That
do think the more grief pick here is just locking Victor AP carry directly into Caitlyn.
yes.
Like, I could see why you'd think it would be fine. And it's like, you definitely fall into the trap of like, oh, they left my one trick up, so I'm just going to lock this in, which there's some
Yeah.
validity to it, but that matchup honestly just seems like horrible. Like, I don't know how you ever get anything done there. The Hecarim and Galio pickups, I guess we can talk about Galio because you can kind of see the whole draft. Because I do think they're going to lock in that combo no matter what. They've been doing it a lot. And I think the
Yeah.
Akali just kind of sweetens the deal. Because Galio is really good into that champion. But so the Hecarim Galio, super on board with. The Victor lock in, I really don't like. I would have loved to see a Jhin here, just because Stanley plays it, and it does do quite well into Caitlyn. And I think it
So
synergizes a lot better with Dive than Victor does, for sure.
so Jin does have good synergies, but you're also forgetting the part where Jin is the worst AD carry in the game. I think
I think
so.
you're forgetting
So
about
so
Aphelios. Or does he not even count as being in the game at this
I would
point?
rather Aphelios. I would rather Aphelios. I
Interesting.
think that Jin is worthless right now in a meta where everybody's tanky, everybody's building tanky, and team fights need DPS in them. In which Jin is, he's a burst AD carry essentially.
Mm,
Like he does not have multi-target DPS. He does not like that's just not what his character is. Even in like against other champions, you see like Varus. Varus probably has like a lot of single target DPS with the Blight Sex and all that. Even Varus can DPS. Vayne a
right.
lot of single target damage has DPS. You know, and I just don't see the worth in him. And his combos are not too incredible. He wants CC supports which aren't really that good right now, and his only like other good combo I can think of outside of like a CC support is like Xerath Jhin, which I do think is okay, but it's mainly because Xerath is a really good character. I think that Jhin is not a good pick here. I do agree that the Victor is absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, what would you prefer then? I feel like Seraphine could be an option, or maybe something like Samira, but I think the Samira Caitlyn matchup is actually not great, so I probably wouldn't want to pick that.
Right. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, like
Um,
the other thing that you could like really pull out, I don't think it's feasible on this team, but something like a Yasuo would be really funny. It has a pretty good matchup into Caitlyn, and the synergy with Galio is actually quite strong, especially like
yeah.
if you're able to lock in more knockups, because top lane and support are still open, and those are very nice lanes to draft knockups into. But
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I also think the Victor pick here is especially grief because obviously Caitlyn lane bully is going to beat up the Victor, but
right,
also you don't know what their support is. You don't know if they're going to just have an engaged champion going in on you permanently, which they did go for
yeah,
this game. Like if you see an enchanter, if you see Janna, obviously you can very comfortably pick a Victor APC because you know that like you're not just going to get bombarded every half second and all
right.
that. But I think here, obviously, complete poo poo. Heckram's broken. Don't listen to Mason. Um,
Well,
I
do
think
you listen
Heckram's
to
really
Mason on the fact that Udyr is super weak and they definitely shouldn't have picked him here because Udyr is a bad champion? Or do you think that's also a lie?
so so so. Heckram, I think, is really good. I think it's good into the Caitlyn. Obviously, a lot of consistent dive. Plus, it also has like the catch up even after she eats away. It's not like sort of one note engage
Right.
character. I think it's good. I think it's also good considering you're going to be pairing with these supportive prio, divey mid laners like the Galio and like the Seraphine that Zach has also been picking, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's a good pickup. I like Udyr. I think Udyr is probably the best jungler in the game right now. Um,
Yeah.
I'm
Good
not
pickup
sure
though.
it's not too fantastic pick into Victor, considering Victor has like range advantage and a lot of good ways to just kite out the Udyr. But then again, it's Udyr. He press ghost. He hit you in the head with a hammer, and then he starts like throwing breath mints at you.
Fair. I do think Akali actually is pretty good. Part of it is because it's possible that you assume that the Victor's going mid. Akali does have a really strong matchup into Victor, so I wouldn't be opposed to that pick. I also just think she's a good champion to blind right now. Very strong,
Yep.
especially in the hands of someone like Cerberus, who's really good on these assassin picks. Galio, as we discussed before, pretty good counter. And then I think the Camille and Alawi bans, Alawi banning her is kind of cringe, I think. But I do think what it does is it forces Alana out of the top lane, or at least off comfort in top lane. So I like the kind of like macro decision behind that. And then Camille, I do think is interesting, but I think that's probably just they're scared of a certain Camille player, or more accurately,
Yeah,
probably it's you don't want Camille Hecarim Galio. That would be atrocious.
that'd be a little gross.
Yeah,
Um, I think the Alawi ban is, as bad as the character is actually pretty good for the side of Spectres so far, considering you have two melee dive characters and then they pick up two more in the Jax and the Amumu. And
true.
Alawi, like on R5, would have just completely dumpstered their comp. So I'd
Right.
be
I do think
ready.
it's weird that the Ornn got banned before the Alawi though, because I feel like as Andromeda you'd almost want them to pick the Ornn so you can pick Alawi.
Right.
But it could also just be the fear of if I don't ban Ornn, then they'll ban Alawi, and then we have nothing to deal with it.
Uh-huh.
But both of those, the Camille and Alawi ban, both definitely telegraph I want to play Ornn. So I just think the ban order there is a little weird because the Ornn got banned, and then they banned two like really bad Ornn counters,
Yep.
which I thought was kind of interesting. Lux is just
Yeah.
a good ban because it pairs well with Caitlyn. And then honestly, I think the rest of this draft is like pretty self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory,
Right,
yes.
you pick Nami, which is really good with Victor because the mandate synergy as well as the E is a good combo, and it's just something that's super comfortable. For Stanley, I know he likes playing with the Nami to support his Victor, and then obviously you throw in a Mumu, has good like counter engage and can stun people as they're going in, as well as the capability to just punish the Nami. And then Jax is just a strong champion. I think Spectre's comp kind of lacks a little bit of cohesiveness, because I feel like these champions all kind of want to do different things, but you are set up really well for like a 1-3-1 split pushing style with Akali and Jax in the side lanes. And then I think GP has decent support to the dive comp, definitely better than Victor. But I'm not sure about the Jax Gangplank matchup. So if you
Oh,
have
it's
insight on that,
fantastic for GP. That's
okay,
that's like the number one Jax kind of pick right
okay.
now
Well,
since Malphite
that's
doesn't go
probably
to
another good
anymore.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you do Malphite, then you're kind of you just don't have enough damage. I
Oh
think.
yeah, no, you can't
Yeah,
go Malphite. It's not as good anymore because Divine Sunder's broken and Jax is just like 50-50 magic damage now.
gotcha. But
But
yeah,
enough about little matchups. I actually kind of like what Andromeda did here.
I
I don't
agree.
know if they did it intentionally or not, but what they did was sort of transition their dive comp into sort of an anti-dive comp. So obviously Galio is a bit of like a flexible champion. On one hand, he can follow up with the engages with the Hecarim and all that, but on the other hand, he can also sit in the back line and like taunt somebody that goes in on you, E them, use Everfrost on them to root them, and help just peel out carries, which I think is good. And then they pick up the Nami. I think Nami is a really good peel champion, not only for like the huge R disengage that slows people, but also for speed ups. I think speed ups on Nami are like probably the most undervalued part of her kit. They're really broken. And I think into the incredibly dive centric comp that Spectres drafted up, I think those two picks are really good. And if they were transitioning away from the dive comp, I have no idea of knowing. But if they were, then that is the good thing to do. I think the Hecarim has like a little bit of an awkward spot. If you were to if they do, which they did,
Right.
transition to the dive comp here, he's kind of like a little bit out on his own. Hecarim can like kind of just stand around in a team fight and queue people, but obviously as Hecarim, you just want to dive that 80 carry and just give him the big old 1-2, just one shot him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think the weakest part of the draft for Andromeda here was the bot lane matchup. I think there's a few other champions you could have slotted in there, but I think if you end up doing that, then Nami probably isn't the right choice. So it gets a bit complicated there. I think this does give them like a very good damage profile, and your point about the counter engage is really good, especially because no one wants to dive into Gangplank barrels. It's really tough. The one thing that I'm like kind of iffy about is picking Gangplank into Caitlyn feels terrible. But you're probably gonna have to deal with an 80 carry anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not the most fun, but at the same time, if you have your funny horse guy like diving the Caitlyn, she's not going to be there to auto attack
Right,
your
and it is
barrels.
4 melees plus a Caitlyn, so
Yep.
that's pretty nice. All right, I think gameplay is less important. I think, but I believe Spectres did end up winning that game.
Draft is the only thing that matters. Only draft.
Exactly. For this episode, we are not talking about anything other than drafts, certainly. Okay. Okay, there's a bunch of question marks over
Yeah,
something.
I think Taxi didn't know who was playing. I think they swapped somebody out because
Oh,
obviously
okay.
you've Rex in this game instead
I
of
think it
Teddy.
was Caesarius was the support, is my guess.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Anyway, they swapped some people around. They got the perfect counter pick that they wanted at the Jax, and it didn't go well. So they banned Jax. That's pretty straightforward. And then Tristana and Draven, you're just taking out Rex's comfort picks. And he is a very intimidating person on the other team. I think these bans are fine. Victor ban is interesting, considering they were able to beat it, but I think it's just something that they don't necessarily want to deal with, because having flexes in draft that are very like deadly weapons in the hands of the right player, and in the right lane and in a good matchup, are definitely not fun. And then Hecarim got taken away as well. And they're also eliminating that kind of like support flex with the AP Twitch ban, which I think is good. And what's interesting here is we do see Andromeda adapt and grab the Udyr. Do you think that happened purely because the Hecarim's off the table and Cam might still prio Hecarim over the Udyr? Or do you just think that they
So
realize it's just the better champion?
I don't know how much Cam plays Udyr. I did not know that was in his
Gotcha.
champ pool, which is something I need to look out now. I have to bite my tongue at some of the things that I do want to say because it's kind of strategy that
Fair,
I'm
fair, fair.
brewing
No,
for
no
when we
leaks,
do
no
play
leaks.
against other players. But
Yep,
I think well in our series we banned Udyr both games. Udyr is disgustingly broken, should not be let on the table. I think it's good, A, because it's an incredibly good blind pick. Technically, you can flex it in the top lane. Top lane, it's
yep.
not too good. It can beat like a couple niche characters.
I think the
But
win rate's surprisingly high, but it could just be
yeah,
small play rate, high win
it's
rate type thing.
a bit of a cheese pick kind of. But
Yeah,
I digress. I think also they wanted to take it away from Anne. Anne has
fair.
obviously been playing Udyr in every opportunity that she gets. So I think it's definitely like good to pluck that away, pluck away such a powerful champion.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that we didn't see the Echo here. Because that pick is very good in Cam's hands and you can still flex it. But I think the fear could just be that the Echo into Udyr is not fun and you didn't want to just give that over for free.
Yeah.
However, you are just playing Udyr into Elise, which I think is not fun either. And Ashe is going to make your life a living hell. Your whole purpose on the
Oh.
Rift is to run around really quickly, and they lock in a champion that makes you run around really slowly, which isn't fun.
So there's actually some propaganda that you need to be be detoxed from. Udyr doesn't lose matchups. Don't listen to Mason.
Oh, okay, okay.
That character doesn't lose. Like playing into Elise obviously has like the cocoon. Ooh, it's a little bit CC. The Ashe is definitely a little bit annoying for the Udyr, constant slows and all that.
Yeah,
But once the Udyr's on top of the Ashe, there's nothing she can do to get him off.
gotcha.
So I think it's still a fine pick. Also just because of how versatile Udyr is, fantastic peel, pretty good engage, incredible team fighting, just tons of damage to everybody, tons of slows to everybody, just super duper useful. Unable to be killed, great itemization, great bod. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I think the Seraphine pick here is kind of dual purpose. I think Seraphine synergizes really well with Udyr here. Because Udyr runs in, Seraphine can follow up from range, but it also denies the Seraphine Ashe bot lane, which we actually haven't seen come out this season. I feel like people might expect our team to be the one that plays it if it does happen. I cannot confirm or deny that, although we haven't discussed it.
Yeah.
So
Listen,
I mean, probably
listen,
not.
listen. All I
But
gotta say is I know what every person in the server is gonna pick for their champions. I'm already that far ahead. Got mind
so
control on
true.
top of mind control. Anywho, I think the Seraphine is okay here. I think it's a little inconvenient. You have to be kind of on your toes this game, like very literally. Don't get hit by the Ash ulti, don't get hit by Elisa Cocoon,
Right.
and you'll be pretty useful. Huge shield on top of the Udyr. Obviously, a lot of potential in the team fights with the yeah. You know, so
KDA taught
yeah,
them that one, right? That's the
yeah.
yeah.
And then Akali here. I'm not a huge fan. I think is it Silas? It's the counter pick and do Akali. I'm getting that right, right?
I don't know. I've That's what I thought it was originally, and then like at Worlds last year when we just saw this matchup all the time, people were like, "It's a skill matchup," and then like
Right.
I think this year casters have been saying it's a Kali favored, so I really don't. I don't understand. I think it's probably skill at this point, but I think it's easier to play as Silas because I think the champion's mechanics are just easier than Akali's,
Yeah.
and the Akali ultimate is still super useful. Regardless, I think the Silas pick here is really good because you get Seraphine ulti too.
Yep.
Um, so
I
I think
think
you are favored.
I think with
Also,
new itemization, I don't know if you know this is some dark technology, but going Morello first on the Akali,
oh,
it,
interesting.
it doesn't seem that bad, especially with the new pen. I think into Silas it might actually skew the matchup in her favor directly, but
Yeah,
again, I
I
wouldn't know. I don't play
don't
both
think that
sides.
happened in this game, but I also didn't watch it super closely. If at all, I might have been driving.
It definitely didn't.
Okay. But what was I saying? I completely blanked. Oh, the value of getting Sovereignty Champion that is so good in his hands that they banned it last game is also really nice.
Yeah.
With Rex being added onto this team, their bans shifted, and they did prio the Jax away from Avery over the Silas ban in the mid lane, which I think is interesting that you know Silas is a threat, and then you draft Seraphine and Akali, but it is what it is. Things
Yeah.
happen.
I think was it Jackson issue in that last game? He was, right?
It must have been. I think he
Yeah,
kind of carried.
I I think so. I think targeting Rex's AD carry pool is good. Tristan is a really really good pick. I don't know if Avery or Sabres play it, but it's also like a three-way flex pick between top and mid. Draven is the same, but people are
Triss top.
cowards.
Oh,
Tristan, yeah. Draven is the same, but people are cowards, so I won't mention that one. I think it's good to target those characters, especially
I mean,
considering their
I
comfort and they're pretty good.
personally I would rather see Draven top than Triss top, but maybe
One's
I'm
better
a
than the other,
maybe I'm a hater for that one. All right. Anyway, Camille taken off the table again. I assume Adam must play like a nasty Camille, and they just don't want to deal with it.
I guess.
And then Zillion's taken away from Stanley. They believe that Stanley has not picked their champion yet, which I think is true because I think the Jin does end up being what he plays. And then Ornn and Darius are taken away. Two other very solid top lane picks in the meta right now. But I do think Avery is known for Riven and Fiora, so I don't know if you necessarily want to prio Ornn and Darius bans over that. But you
Definitely
know
not.
that you're going to be blind picking your top most likely. So I think just banning champions that you don't want to deal with as the Fiora would be helpful. I don't know if Darius and Ornn are necessarily like I thought Fiora won both those matchups, but it is what it
Darius is
is.
a disgusting creature. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
I'm in favor of just getting rid of Darius for the sake of getting
Yeah,
rid of
I think
Darius.
Ornn's kind of okay to leave up, but I think they realize that they're gonna have a pretty immobile backline with the Seraphine and the Jhin, and they're like, okay, how do we protect that? Boom, get rid of the Ornn. We're not getting and
True.
just thrown in the air. Varus, incredibly good character, one of the best AD carries.
Yeah, and
Not
Ash Varus is just a really good lane, so I
Yeah,
think
not paired with an
that's super solid.
enchanter. Not paired with an enchanter this game, despite the dive, which I think is it's fine. I'd rather have a Varus AD carry with an Ashe support than a Ashe AD carry with an enchanter support.
Yep.
I think it's okay. I already talked about my opinions on Jin. I don't think it's really that good. Oh, I forgot to talk about the bans. So the bans are really good. Camille, obviously easy and kind of undeniable access onto the back line, especially
Yep.
considering the comp that they have right now. Varus and Ash, both very squishy, very immobile. Not like a whole ton of peel of themselves, especially if the Camille has enough, like, good enough hands to jump over either of their big CC moves.
Yep.
And then I think the Zillion is also a really good band because Udra with Zillion is a nasty
Yeah.
combo. You just press E on him, the bear goes, and then he does very bad things.
Yep. Hard to agree there. Yeah, we do see Jin, which I think you mentioned is not like your favorite. I also don't know how I feel about the Jin matchup into either of those champions. I feel like both of them are not super fun for him to deal with. Ash is playable. Varus, I really don't like playing as Jin. Fiora Blind, I think is pretty solid still. I think Champion got nerfed recently, but I think she's still pretty strong.
They nerfed her scaling slightly, and
Oh,
with
okay.
Jax off the table, there isn't really a lot of consistent counter picks outside of like GP Malphite.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And then Avery does get to pick up Riven, which is a super comfort pick, and I think Fiora Riven is skill. I personally I feel like it should
Yeah,
be Fiora favored because I think you have an easy time getting through the beginning of the game, and then you obviously outscale. But I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't know. I did not play either side of the matchup,
I
so I will
was I
not.
was told
Uh,
by a source on Spectres that it's a skill matchup, but
Gotcha.
I think it's
Oh,
also really
exclusive.
easy to trust Avery after he gapped in the Gangplank Jax matchup, and he just has so much mastery on the Riven.
Right.
And this game did end up the same way. We'll just take a little peek towards the end, see exactly how it went down. Huge top gap, insane jungle gap. I think you did have a point about Cam not being super comfortable on the pick.
Hmm.
Sarverse wins mid as well. It honestly just looks like destruction across the entire map.
Yeah. I see
Uh,
an 012 and an 007, and I don't think it's going very well after
yeah,
that.
I'll go like a little earlier in the game and see where the early lead was. Um, Looks like it's just spaced out completely around the map, and Ant's KP isn't like insanely high either. So I think it's just individual. Good play from all the
Yeah.
players on Spectres. Um, I do think bot and mid are definitely just winning for Spectres, and then top lane is skill, but you have a quite good Riven player on the Riven, so happens. I am going to kick it to the next series.
Wonder whose it is.
Well, neither of ours because we didn't play. That's why we sit back and
Oh
criticize
yeah,
everyone's
that's right.
draft.
I forgot. Oh, big 2-0 at the top. You
Huge.
know it.
Okay, well, uh, obviously these drafts are going to be a little bit different because they are not being taken as seriously. We have a bit of the
Right.
metabusters. I did actually talk through these drafts on stream, so I think my thoughts have already been shared. I think Thresh, Ezreal, Jarvan are all really good bans here. Jarvan feels really fucking
So,
strong this patch, and
you have
Honan.
to you have to remember that was before Jarvan buffs. This was, I'm pretty sure.
This was Friday, so it was after.
What was it after? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
never mind then.
yeah. And then Honan, despite them not winning in week two, his Thresh was absolutely disgusting. Like I think anyone who watched that game, if you ever doubted Honan on Thresh ever, just like stop. He's disgusting on this pick. He played like full tank Thresh. I like, I don't know. I've seen some things. Obviously, pro play Thresh players are probably still better, but I don't know. Like at this level of play, the Thresh mechanics are absolutely disgusting. So just want to give that a shout out as we do see that taken away. And then Jack's band against Heroic. Sejuani and Maokai both taken away from Jackson. He showed that he's really good with those kind of like tank, low econ junglers. So I do like the bans from both teams here. But you know what I absolutely hate, Blake?
Samira.
B1 Samira. Ah,
Hmm. So the patch notes lie to people. All right, that's all I gotta say. So next patch, I don't know if anybody's seen it. They're nerfing Samira. That champion, garbage. And you cannot convince me otherwise. In solo queue, maybe if you're in low, ew,
I I
I would
even
never get
like
caught in low.
I don't even think she's like that good. Like I don't know. Like I don't feel like her numbers are super good. Just like win rate wise, no one's picking her up at like high levels of play. Like I just don't know why she's getting nerfed. To be honest, I feel like
So
she's
I
not good.
think there's like this concept that I sort of have where like the cohesiveness and like the quality of a team fight like goes down like linearly with like the length of a team fight. So at the beginning of the team fight, you're playing well. You're starting by executing all your combos. You know, you're engaging properly. But as like longer and longer as the team fight goes on, the more and more like your gameplay kind of falls apart. Obviously, for like positioning changing and all that, um, and stuff like that. And I think Samira can sort of thrive in those environments in which the team fight kind of falls apart and she's just getting resets, just getting stacks on Conqueror, stacks on her passive, etc., etc. Anyways, so you said you gave your thoughts on this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I will kind of repeat it for anyone who doesn't want to go back and watch the VOD. I think having someone else to talk over it is good. I did actually talk to Will about this draft because, as you probably noticed, Twitch is up against Will. Doesn't lock it in. Instead, B1
Hmm.
Samira. He literally just said that he didn't notice. Like he just assumed that they had banned
Really?
Twitch. The other team
Wow.
says that they forgot about Twitch. He forgot that they didn't ban Twitch. So things happen, I guess. And then the immediate lock-in of the Cho'Gath Xayah bot lane. I know on stream I immediately called it. They are the metabusters, but that doesn't mean that they don't pick the same thing more than once. And Cho'Gath support has been a huge pick for Honan. throughout this season so far. I don't know if MVP was able to identify that correctly, but I'm pretty sure as soon as they locked in the Chozaya, they knew it was going to be bot lane. I do like Cho'Gath's ability to stop Samira's ultimate with a few of his different abilities, and Xayah does offer you a lot of safety, especially into the engage support that you know is likely going to come with the Samira.
Yeah. I'm gonna start spitballing real quick. So I think MVP bans are relatively okay. I think Jarvan's not a champ that you can like that you want to ban unless you're picking a very like diveable comp. And obviously they are not a diveable comp; they are the dive comp.
Right.
So obviously, I feel like Jarvan doesn't offer a lot of threat. Thresh and Ezreal are both very, very good bans considering the comp that they went with. Thresh obviously provides a lot of peel with the ulti, the flay, and the lantern to get people away, and then Ezreal has self peel with the E and the E resets and stuff like that. So that's all fine, but I think the Meta Busters bans are very bad. So Jax is a good champion. Sejuani's a good champion. Maokai's a good champion. They're all really good, like B1 picks, which I think is understandable. But you also have to remember that the players that they are trying to facilitate are not Jackson. Jackson's just going to pick like something low eco, spam ganky, tanky, no matter what you give him. Obviously, you can take him off more useful picks like the Maokai or the Sejuani, and then he's forced to pick a poo poo character like Volibear. But at the same time, by doing that, you're leaving up more of Heroic's champ pool, and obviously you've seen like how Heroic has kind of just been beating people up.
Right.
And I think that definitely has a lot of issue to it. So yeah, Samira B1 obviously horrible. Tons of way to counterplay that champion. Enchanters, people that can lock her down like a Leona, etc. And also we see in this case the Xayah. I think Xayah is fantastic into Samira because obviously she's going to be paired with the engage support.
Yep.
Like a Nautilus in this instance, and obviously Xayah has a lot of leverage into those characters. Cho'Gath, I'm not sure how good Cho support is. Cho AD with Senna support is really, really good. That's a like great combo, but I'm not sure about how good like Cho support standalone is. I think he's very clunky in a sense, in
Yeah.
which his moves are slow and he has to turn around for all of them. So it might be a little bit like difficult to catch the Samira who's dashing without any lag on her abilities and stuff like that. But I think it's good, especially considering it is a flex pick. They don't have Healy on the team. I see Cho'Gath and I presume Healy. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think.
Honan is the new Cho'Gath to watch out for on the block or whatever. He does play, I believe, top and support, but I think the Cho'Gath W silence is actually pretty good into the Samira. I think that's part of the reason it got picked up. But I agree with you. Like, uh, Leona Q is much faster. Even if you are going to W silence the Samira with Cho'Gath, you still get about half a second of Samira ulti onto your team before she gets stopped. So
Mhm. Yeah.
it's not necessarily what you want.
I I also think that Cho'Gath's better roles are just mid and top right now. He's a really good character. Nobody picks him for some reason, but his matchup spread is really good in top lane right now. He loses to Fiora, obviously loses to like Camille, but he can go even with Gangplank. He beats Jax. I'm pretty sure he beats Sion, and that's just like really really good. So I think it's okay considering it's a flex pick, but considering it's just a support pick, I think there's definitely better options. Xayah
Yeah.
obviously really good, and then we blunder pick the Nautilus automatically into the Xayah. I guess like what are you gonna do? You have Samira, you need the engaged support, but like
Yeah.
I feel like there's definitely a better pick than just the baseline Nautilus. And
Yeah,
then we
I mean,
have
I think is Alistar like something that you'd consider here?
um uh, I don't know. Hadiri plays Silas mid, right?
Probably. I don't know.
I think so. I think so. And if so, like you don't want to pick Ali when Silas
That's
is
that's
up,
fair. That's fair.
especially in an R3. Everybody loves Silas R3.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
and
I
then they
think there could be some validity just holding support till later. But I don't know. I think Nautilus isn't terrible. Because obviously you're not gonna be able to get Xayah locked down too much, but uh,
Mhm.
it's not like they're gonna pick a bunch of other champions that you also can't lock down. So while Nautilus isn't great, specifically into the AD carry, you know it's going to have use into most of the other members of the team. So I don't think it's like the worst, but I definitely see where you're coming from. Whereas the Zai is just going to be able to neutralize a lot of what you're doing.
Yeah,
Then
I
I
think
think you already said before that Volibear is just bad champion, but
horrible character. So linear. His ganks are super easy to avoid. He is just a big wall of meat. Oh no, he healed for like 100 damage early game. Oh no. Oh, what is my 80 carry with two items kiting him and no one shotting him? What?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think what we did end up seeing through this game is that the Volibear being able to disable turrets to allow the Samira and Nautilus to get things done was really crucial, though. But I
Mhm.
think Maokai and Sejuani probably would have been able to do the same thing just a little bit better. But also Jackson being on comfort, because Volibear is one of his champions that he's most known for. Let me double check real quick if it is his most played.
It is definitely.
Okay. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Camille?
So what I would do here, I don't like choice support, obviously. So we're gonna see a little bit into the inside of the Blake mind. So you would actually be one Ivern. I'm joking. Uh, so obviously you have your Cho and your Zaya. You can't change that. They're both really good picks, but I think that what we do is we tell Cho get a hike. You're not allowed in bot lane anymore, and we go ahead and we pick up something that is going to completely dumpster these three dive characters that they're already showing, which could be anything. I don't
Oh,
know
sorry about that.
Zaya pairings all too well. Obviously Rakan, but Rakan doesn't really fit the memo of anti-dive all too well. So I think I would just grab a Janna, grab a Lulu, one of those two. I think Janna would be the better in this scenario. I think Janna is also like a little bit better of a character than Lulu. Obviously, just like a little bit less versatile with the pairings. But I would have gone for like Enchantress, Janna, Lulu, and then
Fair.
saved my top lane pick for later because
So to completely blow your mind here, it's Camille Jungle.
jungle, right?
So, that happens. I do think, ignoring the fact that it's a Camille that just got picked in the jungle, I think having something that you feel counters the Volibear pretty well. I think we end up seeing in game that isn't the case at all. But
So
locking it in this
yeah,
position, I don't think is terrible, especially because you're keeping the
I
flex alive.
yeah, I don't know how much Cam or no, not Cam, no plays Camille, but I played a lot of Camille. I don't anymore because I no longer have the hands to do so. But Volibear is a terrible matchup, especially in the jungle where Volley's clear is like 20 times more healthy than yours is. You're never going to be able to contest him ever. So you just have to pray that you're on the opposite side of the map than him, and that the Nautilus Severe isn't one shot you like CCU, before you can actually do anything in your gank.
Yeah, I mean, I think having the Hextech Ultimatum to kind of dodge out on things is kind of nice, but Volibear just kind of just ravage you in the early game. I think, considering we are talking about a Meta Busters draft here, I think the Camille is better than what the average Meta Busters draft you'd expect to be. I think
Yeah.
it's at least going for something, and I think the timing of the jungle counter pick does work out pretty well.
So I think also what you could do in this scenario is Samira's tank shred is it's good, but it's not the best. Obviously, she's not going to be able
Yeah,
to build like LDR as early as other characters. She wants that bloodthirster. She wants
yeah,
the IE. She wants the collector if you're a center.
definitely.
So I think what you could have done here is slam the Scion. It's not too fantastic into the Volley Bear, but if the Volley Bear is building Divine instead of a tank mythic, he's obviously going to have like a lot harder of a time staying alive in these team fights. So I think if you just slam the Scion, have another like wall of meat in front of Noam, another wall of meat that can cancel heroics ulti and all that. I think it's definitely a way better option. Obviously, like I said, you could also go for the Janna here and flex the Cho'Gath into the top, but that's not
Yep,
going to happen.
right.
So
I think
for
Fiora Darius ban's super good. I think that's a point everyone can agree on. And
Yep.
I want to say Set and Timo are both just specifically aimed at Silico, because going into this series, Valor versus Silico is like a huge talking point. They're very
Hmm.
good friends. I think have literally never laned against each other in the entirety of scrims, despite having played a lot of games in like the same time period. So this is definitely something that I was really personally excited to watch. Silico, I feel, played the better mid lanes across the series. Ultimately, his team did not win either game, so it's kind of like you don't see his play necessarily reflected in the results, but I do want to give a shout out to him. I think he at least won this matchup. I'm really excited to see them play again, though, and hopefully Hadiri will be more over his COVID, and we'll get to see a better series overall, because I do think that was a big factor here. But I like the Graves pickup a lot, because as Metabusters, you know that top and mid are both not selected, and you know that they think that jungle is still up in the air. So Graves kind of fills any of the remaining possible slots you could put things in. So I really appreciate the flex pick. And Silico knows that Graves mid is just a safe lock in, because I know the comparison that gets thrown around a lot is that Graves is basically just a control mage, and control mages have really safe matchups.
I think it's pretty good. I it's difficult to think about grades right now because obviously with the crit changes and bloodthirster buffs and all those changes, his itemization has changed a whole ton.
Yeah,
And obviously I haven't looked into it too much, but not a lot of one tricks, especially landing one tricks, are like popping up with any like nutty crazy builds, and obviously pros haven't gotten their hands or haven't really been picking Graves to be honest
right.
to really show me anything. So I think it's a little difficult to exactly like say how powerful Graves is right now. But I think obviously as a safe pick mid, he's incredibly safe. You just press Q on the wave, you hit the minions, you get
Yeah,
your 12 items and all that. I think it can be a little difficult to play into the Samira and Nautilus. Obviously, again, you have to be
agree
on
with
your
that.
toes, like I was
Yes.
talking about earlier. You have to dodge the hooks, you have to beat them up. But I think if Smokescreen is used against Samira well, it can completely shut her down. Because obviously she's trying to stay as slippery as she can in the fight. E to the target, one shot them, E again, E again. If you catch her out in the middle of that pattern, it could be like lights out for her. She gets Cho'Gath queued. Zaya one shots her, Camille E's on top of her.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Akali here and Azir are both pretty good pickups. It does force you into a like quote unquote blind Akali top. I'm going to assume that MVP thought they were picking it into Camille, which sure, I think that matchup is pretty good. Camille, I think, has things that she can do into Akali. Certainly more things that she can do into Akali than Graves or Ornn can,
Yeah.
which is pretty rough.
I
But I
actually
think Azir and Akali are good picks here. I despise the Ornn though. You lose into
so
Akali and you lose into Azir, and if you
so
want to force it, you also lose into Volibear.
yeah, yeah.
So
So I if it was Camille top, I think Camille and the Akali is even. Akali's pretty good. Obviously, a stronger early game than Camille, but yeah, obviously a lot of outplayed potential, jumping over the R2 and all that. So again, I would have done things completely differently, but I feel like they're just so shoehorned into such an incredibly like rigid dive comp. Again, I'm gonna bring her back up. You can bust out the Big Mama Alawi. She would be fantastic here. All the characters lose to her
for the
except for
R5 pick,
Azir. Yeah.
yeah,
R5 or even R4 if you really wanna, or
yeah,
R3, yeah, R4. If you really wanted to. Obviously, you usually find like a majority of like the Alawi pain comes from the bot lane, and when you see Samira and Nautilus, well, you're just crying tears of joy.
right. No, that's super good for them because all this is really short range, and I feel like Azir has the ability to kind of build steady can shred tanks, but he's never really going to do it effectively enough for Alawi to not have a good time. Do you think
Agreed.
there's any other like particularly good picks there? Because I do think Orin suffers like I think the only champion on that team that doesn't make Ornn cry a little bit is Nautilus.
Hmm.
Because Samira, like, you just don't have an ultimate anymore. And then Akali's going to dance around you. You can never hit her. Volibear's going to disable your towers, so your typically safe early game is not as safe anymore. And then Azir is just going to outrange you. And it's going to shut you down a lot.
So it's difficult to pick into a Kali top because obviously she does particularly well into a lot of the champions there. A lot of her champions, she kind of just like tests.
Mhm.
And unless you're playing, a certain individual I'll talk about later in the draft, you're probably gonna like end up losing to her or getting like cheesed out or end up behind. And then when she hits six, obviously the level six exists in power spike, so you just kind of lose.
Yeah,
If I
thoughts
were
on Renekton?
to shit Nectin, no, you should not be picking Renekton to build Gore Drinker and Black Cleaver. If you're picking Renekton, you're building Prowlers and Bork and you're one-shotting somebody.
That's fair.
Um,
I do think something like similar to that. I just don't know what champion it would be. If you have something that
so
has like a maybe like a Pantheon. I'm just like trying to think because this team wants to go
so
off meta, right? So I think if you log in something like Pantheon top, I think qualifies as off meta, right? And then you have point and click CC for Akali and Samira, and he's not going to have the same like suffering into Nautilus Volibear as Zir that Ornn's gonna
it,
have.
it would be a good pick in the Akali and the Samira, but I also think Pantheon is just kind of a bit of a wet noodle. Like
Fair.
he's so squishy. He's kind of just poo poo, no scaling, all that. I think what you can do. I'm not sure how every single one of these matchups goes, but R5 obviously, like I said, the Alawi five dive champions.
Mhm.
I think if you were to slam the Scion um on the jungle instead of the Camellia, you have the world's greatest GP game in human history. Nobody's going to be able to walk at you. You have
True.
two tanks in front of you with the Cho and the Scion, and it's just over. I think even without it though, you can pick GP comfortably. All our champions are super duper bad into you. Akali loses the GP in top lane, just as long as you're not, playing without like a care in the world. I
Yeah.
think um I think what you could also do Gwen. You're obviously not lacking any AD damage. I'm not sure how the Gwen Akali matchups goes.
It's really bad for Gwen.
Horrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Akali's like the Gwen counter, so I would probably
okay,
not do
well
that.
then never mind. Maybe we just put the Gwen mid and then have her shuffle into his ear instead. I
True.
think Graves Akali is not that bad. I've played that one out a couple of times. It's not too horrible.
Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
think it's not what you want, but I think it is playable. We are
yeah.
kind of running low on time, so I'm just gonna skip ahead to
Okay.
the next game if that
Yeah.
is good with you.
I can
Um,
lightning round this next one if
Yeah,
you
I
want me
mean, I
to.
think this one is a lot more simple. Same bands coming up for MVP. I think we discussed earlier that the Jarvan ban is maybe not great. You saw the same thing for Meta Busters, but I don't nothing new to talk about there. They open their eyes and realize that Twitch is in fact up. They lock it in, and we see Cho'Gath get locked in again. You can kind of say the same thing here, and I think the value of it, which was present into Samira, is no longer present at all into Twitch. And Karthus gets locked in.
Yeah.
This was again AD carry, and I think I like Karthus into some champions. Hyper scaling pick is not what you want it to be in because Karthus has a weaker lane, but he's able to get safely into the late game. He will outscale some of the more early game focused AD carries, but you're not going to outscale Twitch.
Well, I disagree. So Karthus obviously does scale pretty well.
Yeah.
But people always underestimate how strong that character is early. That character is super good early. Your Qs do so much damage. You have the E. You can obviously just easily take one for one trades with your passive and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I feel like people really, really undervalue how strong Karthus can be in the early game and how strong he can be in early skirmishes and stuff like that. So I do want to put
Okay,
that note out there.
that's
Although I
fair.
think it's definitely way less true for laning Karthus compared to jungle Karthus.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to be stuck in the lane.
Yeah, I think Poppy here is interesting. I think they just didn't get what they wanted fully out of the Volibear, and went for a similar champion. I'm
Uh,
not gonna lie, I'm surprised Metabusters didn't realize that this was for sure Poppy Jungle. I don't see a world where Heroic, who's been their carry player more and more so as the season progresses, I don't see a world where he ever picks Poppy, especially not
mhm.
blind. So that was kind of interesting. And Seraphine was just picked to lane with the Twitch. I think they realized that Seraphine is just insanely good into Cho'Gath, so why not pick it? Morgana,
So
I believe, was jungle.
I like the Morgana. I like the
Yeah,
Morgana here, but
I like it a
I
lot
think
as
the
well.
Poppy is completely grief.
Yep.
Obviously, you have some ease of access onto the Karthus. You can lock him down and all that, but do you really want to be locking down a Karthus? Like if you lock him down, you're blowing your CC on him. Your E is like what, a 10-second cooldown.
Right, and
You're gonna be blowing him up. You're gonna be taking damage from his passive the entire time, and when he or from his E the entire time,
yeah,
and when he dies, he's still gonna be useful in the fight. So I'm not really sure how good it is.
yeah, and you
And
don't
obviously,
want to do it to the Cho'Gath either.
yep.
So yeah, and I
And
think
you also have the answer of the Morgana, which is
right.
really good into shutting her down with Black Shield.
Yep, I think that's all pretty self-explanatory. And instead of, or I guess the ban's pretty straightforward. I think the Pantheon and Nuxion are just more bans targeted towards Silico. And I think they just banned AD here because they don't have any. It feels like they had a read on the Karthus being AD carry, which is kind of interesting, just based on their bans. I don't know if I would have predicted Karthus to be an AD carry pick. I know when I was casting this game, I saw Cho, Karthus, Morgana. Those three champions could literally cover any three combination of lanes. So I think heads up to MVP for correctly deducing where those three picks were going. Now, instead of picking Gangplank last game, where he said it was really good, instead we're blinding Gangplank.
So I'm very upset by this. So Heroic is their best player.
Yeah,
It's very apparent in the gameplay and in the way that they're drafting. Look at all these like supportive champions and the Poppy and the Seraphine, and then you got the big daddy top laner.
yeah,
So the fact that they're giving Silico last pick.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact that they're giving Silico last pick when he's not playing top, instead of giving their top laner who basically is just on objective survive
Right.
into heroic, the counter pick, I think is really, really
Yeah.
stupid.
I mean, I
I
think
think,
what you can do is flex the gangplank. So I don't think it's terrible. I think you kind of give the option to do both, but then you don't take it. That's what I don't get.
yeah, I don't know. Gangplank
What's
in this game
the
is pretty okay, I think, still, especially following up the Aatrox Silas. I think Aatrox does well into Gangplank, way worse after the nerf to Aatrox. I think it's playable now. It used to be horrible for Gangplank, but it's still not a fun matchup. You have to
yeah?
play
What's
really, really well.
Silas versus gangplank mid like?
I have not played that in so long.
Okay,
It can be frustrating because he
I'll
has
give it a quick
damages you
check
on.
if I can see it. Right
It
away.
can be frustrating because he can his autos proc your barrels no matter what. But
Gotcha.
if you're playing like at the range you should be barreling him every time he hops on top of you.
Okay,
And I
yeah,
think
it looks like Gangplank is slightly favored mid. So I probably would have just taken that and then counterpicked the Aatrox, but
yep. Things that are
we can see
open,
that.
Irelia, Fiora, Ribbon are all open.
Yep. But yeah, so anyway, we see Gangplank just taken into the Aatrox matchup, which I think is still terrible, but obviously you have a bit more experience on the champion, so I'll default to you. For both
Hmm.
champions, I think. Zed into Silas, I think, is good because you definitely need more AD here. I don't think you want Gangplank to solo AD, which I think might normally be fine, except he's in a bad matchup, so you know it's going to be a little rough. And Zed definitely does have a pretty solid matchup into Silas if you're able to play it right. What I noticed immediately on the cast is that Metabusters has zero early game champions, especially in the way that they laid out the map. Because normally
Yeah.
Morgana and Karthus could have early game threat, but I think when you swap their roles to what they're playing here, they kind of
Yeah.
just lose it. Which,
So
go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I'm kind of unsure on what to think of Morgana Jungle. I have not played it ever, and every time I see it, I have to kind of reevaluate like what the hell is this thing doing in my jungle? I think it's good,
Yeah.
but it is very, very, very bad early game.
Yep.
I think it has gank potential if your junglers have damage or your laners have damage, excuse
Yep.
me. Um, but I think like mostly you're looking to pick it for those late game spots. And I think the only champion in which that will like even remotely do well in lane unless you have Solar Baka on GP is the Silas.
Yep. Which
I
did
think
actually happen. I think that was the strong point of
yeah.
their team.
And I think if Silico, like even in that scenario where Silico is the only Fed member of their team, I think if he plays as well as possible, I think it should still be free for Metabusters. I actually kind of like their draft, sort of. So you have a lot of stuff to basically peel the back line from the Aatrox and the Silas, so and the Poppy. So I think if you can survive long enough to have Silico just go in there and one tap the Twitch and the Seraphine, I think your other carries can do, your other like champs on their team can do a lot into the aggressing part of or Valorant Pirates.
Yeah, I do think what the nail in the coffin though was instead of it being carry Twitch, Seraphine support, it's AP Twitch support, and he starts off the game killing, not actually killing Gangplank, but making it so that Gangplank doesn't get to play the game.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have a fed Aatrox, and then it's just over, which is exactly what happened. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it was a really heads up decision to swap the Twitch to AP support instead of trying to play a traditional lane. It definitely makes your damage spread worse. Like, there's no like upside to it in terms of that, but you make your damage spread worse, but you're able to just completely snowball the game. So yeah, that's exactly what happened. They were just able to snowball through the Twitch, and we are running a bit low on time, so I'm going to pull up the matchups for next week. Just give me a quick predict for Andromeda versus
Uh,
Metabusters. 3, 2, 1.
okay. Andromeda Metabusters.
Yep.
Depends how cheesy. 2-1 Andromeda.
Okay. 2-0 Andromeda. Rift Shark
2-1. 2-1.
Specters.
2-1. 2-1 Andromeda.
No, I'm saying 2-0. Rift Sharks
Okay.
versus Specters. 3, 2, 1.
Uh, hmm. 2-1 Red Sharks.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to say 2-0 Rift Sharks because I always say that. New York Nutbusters versus Mallory Pirates. I will go first. 2-0 Nutbusters. Y'all got
Doing
this.
our
Good
busters.
luck.
Thank you.
All right. We have 20 seconds. I think the huge highlight from this
Okay.
week.
No. I got this. I got this.
Oh,
Don't pick more.
go.
Don't pick Alawi. Don't ban more. Don't ban Alawi. Don't pick Samira. Don't pick Jin. Don't pick Okay, go.
Oh, good job, Heroic. You did very well in your series. And Caesarius, you're a beast. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.